Rogue Nicotine on demand, delivered direct to your door. Available in all your favorite flavors and formats. Pouches, gum, wintergreen, peppermint, and more. From fishing to Sunday football to dinner at the in-laws, Rogue Nicotine is there for you when you need it. Visit RogueNicotine.com today and save 10% when you place your order for sugar-free, fast-acting Rogue Nicotine. Underage sales prohibited. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. For more information, visit RogueNicotine.com.
Welcome to Virtual Meditation with Shiloh.
Hello?
Today we're working on forgiving ourselves for not knowing the difference between upload and download speeds before getting cable internet.
That's oddly specific.
Repeat after me. I am not my cable internet.
Wait, I don't have cable.
I'm not a bad... It's my video calls, more like video stalls.
Hey Shiloh, there's something...
I will get AT&T fiber.
And I will switch classes until you do.
Slow upload speeds? You're not a bad person. You just need better internet. With 20 times faster upload speeds, AT&T Fiber delivers a faster internet experience than cable. Get AT&T Fiber with no annual contract. Limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT. Check eligibility at att.com/getfiber based on combined internet 1000 wired up and download capacity versus major cable providers 1 gig service with uploads of 35 megabits per second. Speeds vary, not guaranteed. Restrictions apply.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 303. Recently, I was telling you all that I had another project in the works that had to do with the serial killer, the West Mesa Bone Collector. Well, I'm happy to report that everything is going smoothly. We're still on target for a release in October, and everything has been moving a lot quicker with that project than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be a bit more of a slow process, but it has really been a lot quicker to get things ordered and organized than I thought it was going to be. So I'm really pumped about that October release. And I think that the story is going to captivate you folks the way it captivated me. It is absolutely heart-wrenching what occurred in Albuquerque at a place called the West Mesa. So be on the lookout for that. Obviously, I'll give you folks a couple more updates as we get closer to me releasing that new project. But it is all cylinders firing there. Everything's ready to go. And expect that project in October. Our story today, our article from today, is from the New York Times. And in this article, it is about the grooming process and how that grooming process is such a huge component to what happens in these large trafficking rings. Now, without the grooming process, these young girls would be nowhere near as susceptible to these sort of operations being run by people like Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And that's why Ghislaine Maxwell's role and the roles of the other groomers are such a big part of what went on here and why they must also be held accountable. So let's jump into this article from the New York Times and see what they have to say. Headline: Charge that Maxwell groomed girls for Epstein is central to the case. Prosecutors are relying on a theory that Ghislaine Maxwell slowly broke down the resistance of teenage girls to sexually abuse at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. And that is certainly part of it, right? With these charges in particular that we see on the docket right now, that is most certainly a key component of what went on. But, always a but, right? As we all know, if this case is being prosecuted in a correct manner, which it appears to be at this point, then there will be many more charges coming down the pipe. And the grooming portion of this, while a huge piece, will be just another portion, right? Because once those RICO charges come down, Ghislaine Maxwell is going to be looking at multiple charges for her role. This article was authored by Nicole Hong and Benjamin Weiser. Annie Farmer was 16 years old when she arrived at Jeffrey Epstein's ranch in New Mexico in 1996 to attend a program for high school students, only to learn that she was the sole participant. And I've been pretty clear about the disgusting situation that occurred in New Mexico with Annie and how the authorities were warned. And they did nothing about it. They were warned what was going on. They were told, Maria let them know what occurred here, what occurred with her, and they ignored it. There she met Mr. Epstein's companion, Ghislaine Maxwell, who seemed friendly and asked about her classmates and her family. Miss Maxwell and Mr. Epstein took her shopping and lavished her with gifts like beauty products and new cowboy boots, according to a lawsuit filed by Miss Farmer last year. And that was all part of it, right? They would bring these girls out shopping. They would take them to these different locations and buy them different sorts of clothes, designer clothes, whatever the in type of clothes were, different material gifts, material items. And a lot of these girls who were from broken homes, they didn't have much, right? So it was easy to gain their trust with material items, with showing them that, oh, we care about you. Look what we bought you. And in reality, it was all part of the setup of the grooming process. The seemingly innocuous behavior was in fact part of a process to groom Miss Farmer for sexual activity, the authorities now say. Miss Maxwell began pressuring Miss Farmer to give Mr. Epstein a foot massage, according to the lawsuit, and the encounters escalated, until Miss Farmer says she eventually woke up one day to find Mr. Epstein entering her room, climbing into her bed, and pressing his body against hers. Imagine being a little 16-year-old girl, and this sick, disgusting ass, no-style having, goofy-looking MF crawling into bed with you, and pressing his body against yours. Talk about being traumatized. Now, with Miss Maxwell facing allegations that she helped Mr. Epstein recruit and ultimately abuse girls as young as 14, the concept of grooming is at the heart of the criminal case against her. References to grooming appear 9 times in the 18-page indictment against Miss Maxwell. And remember, all we have to go on so far are these indictments that we see on paper, right? These are what we know for sure she has staring at her. These are what we know the authorities are charging her with right now. But we also know things are happening behind the scenes. We know that there's a grand jury that is still impaneled investigating this case. And if you think that there are no more indictments coming, if you think that this is just the end of it, then you have not been paying attention to the way things have been moving as of late. There are a lot of doom and gloom type of people around this case, and you know what? I can't really blame people for that, considering how poorly the prosecutors have done their job in the past when this case has been the topic. But what we have seen since Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested signals that this operation has been burned by their handlers, and Maxwell, the Core 4, and Jean-Luc Brunel have been left twisting in the wind. That is very apparent if you read between the lines here, at least in my opinion, right? Of course, I most certainly am not the be-all, end-all authority of this case. I mean, we're sitting here and we're doing what we have always done. We're putting together the pieces and coming up with an educated hypothesis about what is going on. We don't know what we don't know. So what's going on behind the scenes, we can only speculate about. But what I can tell you is from what we have seen thus far, this whole entire case is about to explode. Grooming has long been part of cases involving underage victims, but the concept has become increasingly important in the Me Too era, as prosecutors have become more willing to file sex crime charges in cases where people are coerced into sexual relationships without physical force. I think that prosecuting cases like this are very delicate for prosecutors, right? Usually we're talking about a lot of he said, she said here. Not in this case. There is no gray area for one of these attorneys to latch onto and say, oh, wait, look, hold on. There's none of that here. We have a bunch of circumstantial evidence. And when there's circumstantial evidence, that usually leads to a lot of evidence that can be used in court and a lot of evidence that leads directly back to those who are being accused. And that's what we see here in this Jeffrey Epstein case. There are many people who were involved, who were in the inner rung of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise, who must face the music. The idea of grooming has arisen in the sex abuse convictions in recent years of high-profile defendants like the former film producer Harvey Weinstein and the former gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar. I think Harvey Weinstein was more of just a straight-up bully than somebody who was grooming, right? He had the power, the keys to the kingdom. And a lot of those girls didn't even want to be with Harvey Weinstein in the least, right? They were disgusted by the thought. But Harvey Weinstein was this oh-so-powerful Hollywood big shot, and if they didn't have relations with him, then they weren't going to get the job. I don't think he needed to groom them for that, right? He just basically thugged it and bullied them into it. But when you're talking about somebody like Larry Nassar, I think that's a little bit different. I mean, we could go on a whole entire episode about Larry Nassar, and maybe we should. Maybe we should do a standalone episode or a 4-part series about that sick bastard. Because Larry Nassar is another sick, disgusting, gross individual who has a place waiting for him in the very bottom of the pits of hell. It's not like a legal term. You're not going to find it in the statute, said Ann Milgram, a former Justice Department sex trafficking prosecutor. Grooming is what predators do when they find a young person and try to break down the barriers that someone may have in their head to going along with the conduct. And let's be clear, it's not just young people. Anyone can be groomed by these sort of people who can manipulate others, right? Anyone who's vulnerable. Now, of course, the most heinous act is when you abuse children. There is no argument about it. It is the most bottom of the barrel, disgusting, depraved act you can be involved in. It is so depraved, in fact, that when you involve yourself in such behavior and you end up in prison, inevitably, you are surely about to learn the hard way how society, even the criminals amongst us, feel about your behavior. So, these sort of people that abuse children are bottom of the barrel, worst kind of people in the world. But that doesn't mean that other people can't be groomed, right? Adults as well. People who are vulnerable mentally and in situations financially can be groomed by people like this. In a new case last week, federal authorities cited grooming when they unsealed charges against Robert A. Haddon, a former Manhattan gynecologist, related to the sexual abuse of 6 female patients, including 1 minor. A predator grooms their victims in order to earn their trust, said William F. Sweeney Jr., the head of the FBI's New York office, at a news conference on Wednesday. He abused that trust completely. And I am not too familiar with that situation, so I really have nothing to say about it. The psychological manipulation often begins with normal interactions, such as giving gifts or paying special attention to a child, psychologists say. Gradually, the predator will expose the victim to sexual behaviors, like light touching, in order to desensitize them to sex. The process is aimed at breaking down resistance, making it less likely victims will recognize the abuse or report it. And we've seen that in spades with Jeffrey Epstein and these survivors, right? That's exactly what they did to break these girls down. We had the whole entire normalization process, the process of showering them with gifts and money. And then eventually it started with the soft light touching, the massaging, and before you know it, old sick-ass, disgusting-ass Uncle Jeffy shows up with his disgusting body wrapped in a towel, asking for the most disgusting sort of ask you could possibly imagine from a minor. If you can get the person to believe that they are responsible for their own behaviors, that they are complicit, then they don't really feel that they can complain, said Chitra Raghaven, a psychology professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, who has testified as an expert witness in federal trafficking cases. And that's what they were trying to do, the normalization of it, right? Oh, this is how we all conduct ourselves here. This is how all of us high society types conduct ourselves. Do you want to be part of the aristocracy? Ha 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 ha. Biff and Biffarella are having a golf game down the block. This is how these people conduct themselves, right? They tried to normalize it, and all of their friends were down with it. Nobody ever said a word, so we can only go on by what we know. Oh, we didn't know anything. We didn't see anything. Yeah, right. Shut up, liar. That's how I feel about all these people at this point. They were naked, but I didn't know anything weird was going on. Jeffrey Epstein just had a house full of girls, young girls, all naked, but I had no idea anything was going on. Dude had no nieces. Dude had no daughters. Dude had no girls he was in the care of. Only girls from disenfranchised homes and vulnerable backgrounds being abused in front of all of these scumbags, and nobody said a word about it. How do you look yourselves in the mirror? Miss Maxwell, who was arrested in July, has pleaded not guilty to the 6-count indictment, which includes charges of conspiracy and of transporting minors to engage in criminal sexual activity. Lawyers for Miss Maxwell did not respond to a request for comment. She has always denied any wrongdoing in the civil lawsuits that have been filed against her over the past decade, which accused her of enabling Mr. Epstein's abuse. A spokesman for Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office declined to comment. And it's telling, right? You notice that they don't really have much to say here and no comments here, but they had plenty to say about Andrew, right? So it makes me wonder what the strategy truly is. Miss Maxwell's arrest came a year after Mr. Epstein, 66, was charged in July 2019 with sexually exploiting dozens of girls and women in Manhattan, Florida, and other locations. About a month later, he hanged himself in a jail cell while awaiting trial, allegedly. Prosecutors have said Miss Maxwell, now 58, recruited teenage girls for Mr. Epstein, knowing that he was a predator who would abuse them, often during naked massages. Yeah, she also took part, folks, all right? Let's not sugarcoat it. What are you scared of? Ghislaine Maxwell is going to sue you for libel or defamation? That's only if that shit ain't true, okay? She's a bipedal serpent and a scuzzball. She was involved to her neck with Jeffrey Epstein in a leadership role. That's right, I said it. Run home and tell that. Miss Maxwell first befriended the teenagers by asking about their personal lives and their families, the indictment charged. She and Mr. Epstein would take them shopping or to the movies. Miss Maxwell encouraged them to accept Mr. Epstein's offers to pay for their travel or education. And this was the pattern over and over again that Maxwell and Epstein stuck to. Why change up anything that worked, right? I mean, it's not like somebody ratted on them in the 90s, 95, 96. Not like Maria told this whole story, but nobody was listening, right? Way too busy dicking around in the FBI. Afterward, according to prosecutors, Miss Maxwell would begin desensitizing the girls to sex by undressing or massaging Mr. Epstein in front of them. That alone right there is enough to pay these girls out millions for just having to see this nasty ass dude take his shirt off. Somebody get the iron and unwrinkle old boy's body. This gross ass, disgusting, Are you kidding me right now? These poor girls. The indictment suggests that Miss Maxwell's sexual behavior with Mr. Epstein in front of the minors, as well as her presence as an adult woman during Mr. Epstein's sexual interactions with them, was critical to the grooming process. Yes, it was. In fact, it was a centerpiece of it. That was a huge part of it. Oh, look, I'm doing it. It's okay. You can do it too. You trust me, right? I have an English accent. I went to Oxford. There's something about having a woman as an intermediary that might make a young girl more comfortable, said Miss Milgram, the former sex trafficking prosecutor, adding, maybe it made some of the younger women let down their guard. Not just the younger women, the older women as well. We've heard from them. They have said that. The indictment described 3 unnamed minors who the government said were victims of Miss Maxwell. She is accused of directly participating in the sexual abuse of 2 of them between 1994 and 1997. One of the unnamed teenagers is Miss Farmer, according to her lawyers. Miss Farmer spoke at Miss Maxwell's bail hearing in July, using her real name. That's right, she sure did, because Annie has big cajones. All right? She's not going to be quiet. She's not going to back down from Ghislaine Maxwell now that Ghislaine Maxwell's on the ropes. Now that this enterprise has been shattered for all intents and purposes. Now is the time for offense. Now is the time to stand up and call these people out. And that's exactly what Annie did in July. The indictment charged that Miss Maxwell gave Miss Farmer an unsolicited massage while Miss Farmer was topless and also involved another unidentified victim in group sexualized massages of Epstein. She is a sexual predator who groomed and abused me and countless other children and young women, Miss Farmer said at Miss Maxwell's bail hearing, where a judge ruled that Miss Maxwell be held in jail while awaiting trial. Prosecutors also accused Miss Maxwell of encouraging a third girl to provide massages to Mr. Epstein in London from 1994 to 1995. Miss Maxwell knew the massages would turn sexual, the indictment charged. Of course she did, because she's the one who helped put the plans in motion. The whole idea, massage, quote unquote, in Jeffrey Epstein's world did not mean a massage. That's why when Dirty Dersh comes out with his nonsense, I roll my eyes and head to the studio to eviscerate him. Nobody believes your bullshit. Not the Penguins and not the polar bears. Nobody. A major hurdle for prosecutors is the fact that the sexual abuse allegations against Miss Maxwell are from more than 2 decades ago. And remember, that's these charges, right? And for sure, it's an uphill battle to climb for the prosecutors. But, like I said, these are hold'em charges. There are more coming down the pipe. If this is being prosecuted correctly without any interference from up high, like idiots like Darth Barr, then this is going to go down, and all of these people who were involved are going to have a lot more to worry about than these initial charges. Federal laws allow prosecutors to charge sex abuse of minors at any point in the victim's lifetime. Still, the timeline creates an opening for Miss Maxwell's lawyers to challenge the memories of the women who testify at trial. Oh, she's going to try, there's no doubt. But it's not going to work. All you have to do is listen to the accounts of these gals, and you know that they know exactly where they were, when it happened, and who they were with. Prosecutors have said they will use diary entries, flight records, and business records to corroborate their testimony. Legal experts said that evidence of grooming is sometimes used by prosecutors to rebut a defendant who argues that sexual activity was voluntary. Well, it's kind of hard to argue with that when you have 14 and 15-year-old kids, okay? Again, we're not talking about a 17-year-old girl and a 19-year-old dude, or a 16-year-old girl even and a 19-year-old dude. We're talking about a powerful world playboy billionaire, sick bastard who was wielding incredible power over these people. In Miss Maxwell's case, it might also be used to attempt to show she intended to commit a crime, that is, that she knew the minors would be sexually abused. She is charged in one count, for instance, under a statute that makes it a crime to entice a minor to travel across state lines to engage in illegal sexual activity. That is also a RICO offense, by the way. The grooming is very important to prove intent, to prove the specific intent that she had them travel for the purpose of sex, said Taryn Merkel, a former federal prosecutor in Brooklyn who supervised human trafficking cases. Before his suicide, Mr. Epstein's lawyers signaled they might argue at his trial that Mr. Epstein had merely engaged in prostitution. Of course they would. They're going to use the same exact defense that their boy, Mr. Alan Dershowitz, set out for them. There was no coercion. One of the lawyers, Reed Weingarten, said in a hearing last year, there were no threats. There was no violence. What an absolute load of bullshit. No threats, huh? Tell that to the Swedish girl. Tell that to Sarah Ransom, who wanted to swim home from the island. You epic dickhead. The judge pointed out that if the women involved were under 18, they could not legally consent to sex under federal law, and asked if what Mr. Epstein had done was statutory rape. Mr. Weingarten responded that it was not rape because there is no penetration. Hey, look, it depends on what your definition of is over here. These people are all sick. I honestly have had a belly full of all of them, and they can take their loopholes and their technicalities and shove them deep. The back and forth in the Epstein case might serve as a preview of how Miss Maxwell's lawyers may try to undermine the government's accusations against her. In any case, Miss Maxwell's lawyers are likely to shift blame to Mr. Epstein if her case goes to trial. Legal experts said 100%. She is definitely going to set herself up as the victim. We know that. It's not going to work, though. Nobody's buying that shit. Nobody's buying it. She will, in many ways, I'm sure, try to put all of their truly egregious conduct on Epstein, and he won't be there to offer any sort of counter-explanation, said Barrett Berger, a former federal prosecutor who runs a center on public integrity at Columbia Law School. Here's the rub. The core four, who are going to be fighting for their lives as well, they still know. They have the goods, and what if they roll on Ghislaine Maxwell? If you don't think that's what's going to happen, you're not paying attention. That's how this shit goes. You think Sarah Kellen Vickers or Leslie Groff are going to be able to withstand RICO charges and hang out in the room with a prosecutor and an interrogator and stay stone-faced? Yeah, right. They're going to be offering up everything like Tekashi 6ix9ine. But such an approach could work to the government's advantage, Miss Berger noted. What's hanging over the jury, she said, is one person already escaped justice in this case. And I think there will be a real feeling and a real need for Maxwell not to. And she's dead on right there, and that's what I've been talking about in this case. Epstein dying effectively burned all their ties to the intelligence aspect of this case. They've wiped all of their fingerprints off of this. So now it's going to be Maxwell, the core four, and Jean-Luc Brunel who are left holding the bag for the trafficking portion of this. If any of these other people are going to get indicted, it's going to have to be for the financial crimes. Unless, of course, the people that are directly implicated by Virginia get indicted, which, hey, that is also very possible. If the evidence provided to the prosecution is enough for them to go on, I would not doubt to see those people indicted as well. But one thing that you can count on, from where I'm sitting anyway, in my opinion, the core four and Ghislaine Maxwell are going to be involved in eating each other alive. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody, until tomorrow.
Me and my orange bike, cruising down the road, lightens any load. Just one thing could make it better if we took a ride together, we and our orange bikes.
New homes and miles of biking trails in Irvine, California. Learn more at greatparkneighborhoods.com.
Rogue Nicotine on Demand. Delivered direct to your door. Available in all your favorite flavors and formats. Pouches, gum, wintergreen, peppermint, and more. From fishing to Sunday football to dinner at the in-laws, Rogue Nicotine is there for you when you need it. Visit roguenicotine.com today and save 10% when you place your order for sugar-free, fast-acting Rogue Nicotine. Underage sales prohibited. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. For more information, visit roguenicotine.com.